Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. A lot of development has taken place in Afghanistan. A lot has happened. So finally, the last soldier has also gone back to the United States of America. And there was a very interesting picture that was taken. But interestingly now, it seems that a lot is happening, a lot will happen. The President, Joe Biden, is supposed to address the nation today. Yesterday, we witnessed that the Secretary of State also, Mr. Blinken also spoke and talked about the overall process and about the overall situation in Afghanistan. He also briefed the media about the evacuation process and the kind of development that has taken place. Now, as we all know that after the bomb blast, things have changed. There was one surgical strike by the Americans in which they claimed that they have killed 2 top-notch IS members, but it also resulted in killing of 10 civilians, including children and women. Now, Pentagon also believes that there are around 2,000 ISIS fighters inside Afghanistan. So that is going to be pretty alarming for the current setup that is going to be established very soon. Other than that, when we talk about another very important factor, and that is about the huge military assets that the Taliban have been able to get hold of, and that is something which is pretty worrisome for a lot of Western countries and also countries like India. Now, one important factor that is also going to be the major topic of our discussion is about the statement of the Secretary of State, Mr. Blinken, when he said that time will prove and the Taliban, they will have to show whether their government will be legitimate or not. Basically, he was referring to the human rights, women's rights, and so on and so forth. Now, a lot has happened since the Americans have left. A lot of analysts do believe that their overall power structure has diminished or rather eroded to a certain extent. Whenever we talk about America, we should always keep one thing in mind, that Americans have the, I would say, the greatest firepower in the world even now. And that is going to be another very important topic, plus one more very important fact, and that is about the Taliban as insurgents as per to the Western world, and now Taliban in power and being somebody who is looking after the affair and is into governance. So insurgents to governance, what sort of obstacles are there? What sort of hindrances are there? What sort of issues will they have to go through? So these will be some areas we'll be talking about in our today's program. Let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. On my right is Ambassador Aslam Rizvi Saab, Senior Diplomat. Thank you so much, Rizvi Saab, for your time, sir. And we also have with us Imran Jan Saab, a very dear friend of ours, and also a columnist, writer, and an analyst. Thank you so much, Imran Jan, for your time. And we'll also be joined in by Lieutenant General retired Naeem Lodhi Saab, again a very known analyst, and we love reading his analysis and his writings. Jan Saab, thank you so much for your time, sir.
It's a pleasure.
Rizvi Saab, let's start off from you, sir. Now, Mr. Blinken says that the Taliban, they are still in a transition process from insurgency to governance. And that is not going to be very easy, and they would be monitoring the overall progress of the Taliban, provided if they do what they have promised, then they'll be legitimized. Otherwise, we have other options. This is exactly what he said yesterday. Let's start off from there, sir.
Well, as you know, the Americans have left after 20 years of making a complete mess of their policy there, and also in the ensuing period causing death and destruction, not only there but in neighboring countries as well. And what better personifies their lack of proper management and policy and arrangement than the exit from the airport in Kabul, the way they left. So that just shows a total lack of proper policy, proper planning, and so forth. Now, they forget now the fact that they are no longer the occupying force with their mighty military on their back, and they're trying to dictate things to the Taliban. Yes, Taliban have been able to take over, and they come to rule there without much of a resistance because of the policies of Americans, the way they had trained the ANA, and much to their surprise, there had no resistance.
But sir, according to the Indian media, I mean, you pick up any channel and you watch them, and they'll say that the Americans, in fact, told the Afghan forces not to resist. And perhaps that was one of the reasons that the Taliban were able to take over even Kabul.
I think that is now trying to, say things to cover the Canaan mistake there, because, they were taken completely by surprise. As we can see, the way the exit took place of the forces and still leaving thousands of people behind. Now, the point is that yes, the Taliban will have a very tough and difficult time to have an all-inclusive government, because, as you know, although they have controlling the majority of the country, there are still areas and provinces. Panjshir Valley is one of them, where there is they do not accept the Taliban from there. However, they are surrounded, and Taliban hope that now that the foreign forces have gone, they can now turn towards the issue of governance and the other demands which they themselves would like to see to follow up. In other words, things like the human rights, women's rights, children's rights, allowing the people who are there, stopping the brain drain if it's possible, because they need the educated people for governance. So it is in their own interest that they should try get an all-inclusive government, so that together they can face the most important challenge, as I can see for them, is the IS affiliates in Afghanistan. They have to be together in order to face this threat, not only for Afghanistan itself, also for the region, particularly Pakistan, and as well as to the West and to the Americans and the world at large. You know what happened when there was, if they don't have the government formed and got a good governance, there may be problem and there may be instability, there will be security problems, and when that happens, the vacuum is of course filled up by the IS. As we've seen this in Syria, we have seen this in Iraq.
So just a number which is hardly around 2,000, is that a potential threat to the Taliban?
To Islamabad, yes, because you see the other issue I'm coming to, because there's a demand by the West that they should have a special compensations for the women's rights, the students' rights, the human rights, and all many things from there. But then, as you remember, during the negotiations, there were also some people, the hardliners, and some militants in the Taliban who were not happy, and they had in fact joined the IS. So the point is there is the fallback. If they insist and don't carry the whole Afghan partners, and then these just may move across and go across and join the IS, as much as the TTP and those people also. So the danger lies not only just that group, what happens if there is instability? So my position is this, that the Americans, instead of demanding that they should do this or we'll do this, otherwise we won't do it, they should, if anything, look to rehabilitate Afghanistan. They should not, stop their finances.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah, they should, if anything, help them, even to the extent that they should try and recognize them. They should be leading the way.
So the way they are working together to look after the law and order situation in Kabul or even around the airport,
it's a start.
It seems they were always the best buddies or something. They were never the enemies.
Yeah, but again,
the way they're doing the intelligence sharing even.
Yeah, but again, look at him. Look at them. See, you're
This is
still
a
having
sign
their
that the Americans have accepted.
imperial overreach. They are still having that kind of a thing. Look what they did with the drone attacks, the last one, killing innocent people and so on. And this is not the way.
Now I fail to understand who provided the intelligence to the Americans if they did it on their own. I mean, what sort of an intelligence level do they have now? That is a question mark. Ambassador, if you allow me,
Yeah.
and Imran Saab, I'll just put another question to General Saab now, because this is totally related to something which he recently also shared on the social media. General Saab, one important area. Yes, we do understand that according to the Americans, there are around 2,000 ISIS fighters. But again, there is a certain claim by most of the anti-Taliban elements and the analysts also sitting in India or perhaps in the Western world. And even John Bolton said that in one of his recent interviews, that most of these ISIS fighters, they would eventually melt into the ranks of the Taliban guerrillas, let's put it this way. And that could be really troublesome because they cannot distinguish between the actual real Taliban and somebody who's also a Pashtun speaking, living in the same area, but he has a different mindset altogether. And on top, we've also learned that most likely the Indians will be supporting the resistance in the Panjshir Valley, sir. So if that is the case, the problem might continue. General Saab, your take.
Thank you. I think those of us who understand this Taliban phenomena, that how they have, recovered the entire country and got it free from the occupation forces, expecting that they won't know their own people, and some people from outside or not their own people will join their ranks and they won't know it. I mean, they are not that disorganized force as we think. Just look at the way they have, taken province after province and town after town. So it is not that some helter, sort of organization that. So this is not likely to happen. Yes, you see, Taliban, they have proved to be very good in two areas. Although there are others also, I can mention that one is fighting. They are probably in Afghanistan today the best fighters, and then negotiation. If you look at what went on in
Recent
Doha, and
developments,
then
yes.
right, they went to China and Russia and whatever happened within Afghanistan. So I think they will first negotiate with Daesh, with ISIL, and try to convince them that lay down your arms, and even if they ask them to join them, it would be good enough if they so agree to that. That is what they're also trying in Panjshir, because they don't want to blemish their record. They want to keep it as bloodless as possible, the entire thing, because they are very much aware of these two factors, which Rizvi Saab was talking: the international recognition and internal support. So that is only possible if they keep going the wise way that we are going now. So, in my opinion, if Daesh and ISL, they opt to fight them, they will be annihilated, and it will not take much time. If they opt to talk to them, that will be good enough. So, in my own opinion, they will either melt away and will never be able to cobble up again, or they will talk to them. So I don't think that any militant group within Afghanistan now cannot be a threat for Afghanistan. And as they have promised that they will not allow their land to be used against other countries, so I am also of the opinion that even the TTP threat to Pakistan will subside with the passage of time. Although they have said that Pakistan can negotiate with them, that is altogether another thing. But before this, RAW was behind them. There were other intelligence agencies. They were getting a lot of guidance and intelligence and all those. You talked about these latest attacks around Kabul airport. Of course, bygone is gone. But the thing is that uh, superpower, because of its hubris, they wanted to show to the world that we are masters, we are in charge till the last day. We can do whatever we want. And I think Taliban did a very wise thing not to react and not to show anger or vengeance, and that is how they have gone away. But I think the world can very easily discern that what was all this about. And even now, if they say that we will see that what Taliban do, and we will see that they do this and do that, these are all hollow slogans now. If they could not see them while they were here, how will they will see them while in Washington or elsewhere? Of course, they will change the posture, and instead of this military instrument, they will now be using diplomatic instruments, economic instruments, political instruments, and they are good at that. They can also use the perception management techniques which they have. So they will keep coming back, and for that, I think they will again will have to have Pakistan in good humor. They can again say, okay, young brother, again we are back, so let us talk, and I think that you will see happening very soon. So I think they will not leave this field for Russians and Chinese and others. They will come back in political way, in economic way.
Political and economic way. Now, as far as assistance is concerned, Imran, Mr. Blinken also mentioned that the financial support is going to continue. But again, he said that the Taliban, they'll have to earn their legitimacy. Now, one important factor, the Taliban, prior to the fall of Kabul and now, there is a lot of difference, sir. Because when you talk about the kind of assets and they're worth into billions and billions, few say that they're worth over 80 billions. That include almost 6.5 lakh guns, latest M16s and all, sniper guns. They've got the anti-aircraft guns, the machine guns. They've got the armored vehicles, around 22,000 Humvees, 75,000 other vehicles, including the top-notch Toyota trucks. Similarly, sir, you're talking about night vision goggles. You're talking about bomb-proof vehicles as well. You're talking about armed vests, and you're talking about 33 Black Hawk helicopters of around similar number of Mi-17 4 C-130s. I mean, that is like they have an air force, they have a proper setup. They don't have a navy so far. The interesting part is, sir, with this kind of the weapon or the long list which they have been able to have after the fall of Kabul, that must have given them a lot of confidence on ground. And secondly, I'm sure that they believe that if they want to take over any place, even including Panjshir, they can take it through hostile measures, but they will not try to. They still want to negotiate. That is a very good positive approach by the Taliban, unlike Taliban actually. So Jalal Sahib is pretty right that they have learned the art of negotiations also, other than the fighting aspect.
Well, the Taliban have seen, they just saw that without winning hearts and minds, no power can actually rule over Afghanistan. They just saw it with the United States, and they saw it with the Soviet Union also.
So the public sentiment was with the Taliban?
It definitely was, because
Rural
the US
and
earned it
urban
for them. The US earned it for them by killing innocent people, by doing night raids, by unleashing hellfire missiles using their drones. The United States earned that sympathy for the Taliban using very expensive machinery and very expensive lives and training. Also, you mentioned that the Taliban now have access to all that military hardware, which is true. A lot of these elite forces trained by the US forces over there, they have also joined the ranks of the Taliban. So now those soldiers come with the training they obtained from the elite US forces. That's another plus with the Taliban. The important issue, I mean, Secretary Blinken mentioned that the Taliban would have to earn that legitimacy. That's right, and the Taliban are actually trying to do that, allowing women to work in media and, letting them go to school, and actually even publicizing that rhetoric that we are not the same Taliban that we used to be 20 years ago or 25 years ago. All that is true, and Secretary Blinken is sounding the right sounds, trying to see if the Taliban would live up to that commitment, because they're going to need someone in Afghanistan. Who's going to be those people that the United States would provide arms and money to keep an eye or keep Afghanistan under control, not to be used against the United States. Here's an important part, by the way. It is hard to tell right now at this point what side the United States would land on, ISIS or the Taliban, because ISIS are the shock troops of India right now in Afghanistan. They may be 2,000 or 20,000, that doesn't matter. Amrullah Saleh is there in Panjshir, Ahmad Masood is there in Panjshir, and ISIS is very much there in Afghanistan. We just saw the attack in Kabul airport, and India is also backing them up. We don't know if the United States would want to support these people to keep Taliban under check, because they're going to need to do that also. It is hard to tell right now at this point. But what I want to clarify also is you just mentioned something about that there will be, they will mix with each other and it will be hard to tell which one is which. Here's an important nuance that the West always make a mistake on, and if anyone in the United States are listening, please don't get it wrong this time and listen to it and please understand. In the 80s, when the Soviets were defeated, you had Afghan fighters and you had Arab fighters. The Arab fighters were actually the people who believed in takfir, who believed in martyrdom. They had read books by Sayyid Qutb, and they were there to die. When Afghans would complain about their activities because they were attracting a lot of firepower from the Soviets, they would say, well, but we came here to die, to become martyrs and go to heaven, go have a good life in the afterlife. The Afghans' DNA is not that. They don't believe in dying. They don't prefer that. They believe in living another day so that they can fight another day for the homeland. So if those ISIS fighters, they believe in dying. They believe in martyrdom. They don't really, so it would be difficult for them to mix up with the Taliban, who are, Taliban's DNA is nationalistic. They care about their homeland. They are Pashtun people. They're Muslim, but before Muslims, they are nationalistic. They don't just go and die because they can go to heaven. They want to protect their homeland. And so if those ISIS fighters mix up, they will be easy to find out. They would not be able to mix with the Taliban fighters. And if they get to fight against each other, ISIS will lose badly. You know, a group that wants to die to become martyrs because they want to resurrect the caliphate. The Khurasan province of the caliphate in their plan includes Afghanistan, Pakistan, and parts of northern India also. They will lose badly against the Taliban. You just saw what happened. They outlived their enemy. That's their DNA. They want to outlive the enemy. They don't want to die. They want to keep fighting as much as they can, as long as they can. So that's a formidable fighting group. The ISIS doesn't stand a chance against them. And it would not be easy to mix them up.
Now, another very important factor, General Saab, is I do understand that, yes, fighting is in their DNA. So the case of the ISIS. But sir, initially we used to, hear about this phenomena of rebels in the Middle East, in Syria and in Iraq, post the American attack on Iraq. And then later on, and another factor, we heard about Boko Haram, we heard about Daesh, IS, and then ISIS. And now, sir, this new recent, I would say this word, that is ISISK. It wasn't there in the CNN vocabulary or in BBC perhaps prior to that bomb blast, that very, very unfortunate incident that took place a few days ago when a lot of Afghan, or I guess around 180 Afghans, they died, and almost 13 US soldiers also were killed. Now, sir, this ISISK, don't you think now this is the new word to play with in the international media, and they would exploit it at every level? And we should get mentally ready that the problem has not finished. The problem has actually begun.
Yes, that's true. Although the Taliban did say that they were too much preoccupied with the exit of the foreign nationals as well as those associated with them, and they would be able to handle the Taliban after that. Handle the ISIS forces after that. So it is definitely possible. But I think another aspect of this is the fact that the victory of the Taliban in Afghanistan serves to encourage a lot of rightist militants the world over. And as we see, Jamia Hafsa, here we saw their flag flying around. And so this encouragement which is coming, this is now a worry, because you may find there are people coming from outside Afghanistan wanting to join in with the IS and revive their own ideology and their ISIS philosophy and ideology of bringing about a change in the world. So again, I'll come back and say that it is very, very important that there should be, it is good that the Americans have taken action and they did use the drone attacks and took away the planners and so forth. And but what is needed here is the Afghan-led, because they are the people on the ground, they know the country well, they know the enemy well, they as well, should be leading an international effort which includes the Americans, the NATO, regional countries, etc., against the IS. That is very important. And we did see a little bit of cooperation between the CIA chief and the Taliban in that direction. So I think it is perhaps important that the Americans try and help out the Taliban in this part of it. Secondly, I think the West must understand something regarding their statement for giving women's right, worrying about how they'll be treated, etc. Look, one mustn't forget that this, whatever has been achieved in the last 20 years in Afghanistan is a welcome thing. It has given a lot of freedom to the women, and both for the for working and for education and etc. But at the same time, the Taliban spokesperson did mention the fact that we need to tell our foot soldiers and the others who are not used to this thing to reorientate them, to re-educate them how to deal with women now. And in that context, they had advised the women also that please give us some time before you come out. So they need time. And when we say need time and there is a pressure coming from the West.
But sir, even on the national television on Tulo News, I mean, a lady not in a hijab or complete cover, yes. I mean, normal dupatta she was wearing, and she was interviewing one of the spokesperson of the Taliban, which yes. went well.
Yes.
But eventually she flew away because she said that, oh, I was so afraid. Because everybody wants to go to America. That is another problem.
Exactly. Sir. This is what the spokesperson said. Okay, they have to recognize they're not going away because their lives are in danger or in threat. They're looking for a better life outside. So, but let me come back to this point about they wanting to reform and to have better and to accept the Taliban, who's 20 years and so on. They've been fighting. They have known not much except for the the leadership there. But the foot soldier is not very well aware of what the life is like otherwise. You saw them driving the go-karts and having ice cream. I mean, so it just goes to show. Don't forget how many years it took the Americans to abolish slavery and how long it took for the women to have the right to vote. And here you are, within a matter of a few days, you want them to be, going
exactly.
around in bikinis.
That is $1 million question. It's $1 million question, and exactly this is what I would like to ask General Saab now. General Saab, a very important point raised by Ambassador Rizvi here. Now, when you talk about, let's suppose we're talking about the social fabric of the Afghan society, sir, you can't change things overnight. And I'll just give you a little data, sir, that in Pakistan we always believe that, around 66% of the population is under the age of 30, youth. Well, 66% is under the age of 20, but sir, look at how many are around 20 years. 80% of the people in Saudi Arabia are under the age of 30. Now again, you talk about India, sir, around 23% of the people are under the age of 20. In Pakistan, almost 22% people are under the age of 20, but in Afghanistan, they are around 40%. So these are the people who were born when the Americans took over. So they lived a very different life, sir. They had internet, they had mobile phones, they had smartphones. And suddenly another government, totally 180 degrees opposite, they take charge. Now that should be another problem, sir. For them also, we have to look at it from their perspective too. So how can this situation be sorted out, sir? Because youth you're talking about is full of energy. Taliban is full of energy, though less in number, but the ideology in the urban areas is perhaps slightly different from that of the rural areas. Your take, General Saab?
I think this is a very valid observation, and 20 years is a very large period. And you're right that those who have grown within this, but then we'll have to see that this phenomena of modernism, how expansive it was, how broad based it was. But it was only limited to some few cities, or it was there in each village and town. My understanding is that it was not all that pervasive. It was concentrated in some, urban areas. The most difficult thing to change is culture. So if you put an artificial culture within a bigger framework of the existing culture, it doesn't work. So in my opinion, there are two facts which actually indicate that Afghan Taliban they have a very overwhelming support of the people of Afghanistan. Otherwise, such a defensive or freedom battle cannot be fought against, the best armies in the world and succeed. It cannot happen without the help of the people of Afghanistan. And secondly, the way they were welcomed, and they at least they came, they brought all the cities under them without much bloodshed. That also shows that out of fear or whatever it was, many people they welcomed them, and so the culture, whether it has been broken just because it was happening in Kabul, I don't think so, because we were getting every feedback from Kabul. People going to Kabul or one or two another cities, big cities, and then coming back and saying all Afghans are against Pakistan, and they are very, the women are getting very good, treatment and all that. I'm not very sure about it. I will not comment on that because I do not believe that whatever was coming through media and through traveling to a limited space, that was the actual fact. Now we will know the actual fact. And I agree with this, that if majority of the youth of Afghanistan, they have got used to this, what you were saying, then there's a difficult, thing on the hands of Afghan Taliban. But if it is not that, it will not be very difficult for them. So I think they have also changed. And of course, things in Kabul and other big cities will not go back to that modern, small stint which happened in the last, 10 years. Uh, the old things are likely to come back, but maybe not with that intensity. So it will be something in between. What I think, if Taliban really understand the world, and which I have no reason that they don't understand, because they have shown their wisdom in negotiations, they have shown their wisdom in fighting, they have shown their wisdom in diplomacy. So why should they not show any wisdom as far as internal politics is concerned? Yes, they have said one thing, and that everything will be within the framework of Islam. Now, having said that, for example, if Islam says that you have to cover your head or you have to cover your breasts, then probably you can't fight, you don't have to fight Taliban, then probably you'll have to ask God, Allah, please change, because these things are not acceptable to us. And I don't think Afghans will ever ask any such thing. So, Afghan Taliban will prevail only if they are moderate and they remain mild as far as enforcement of these things are concerned. Let the people decide. They can guide them, they can ask them to do it, but if they try to do it, with force, then probably it may, backfire. And I think they understand this phenomena, that even in religion, you can't force people, because that is always counterproductive. And if they think this one point, which I've said, I think they will succeed. And if they fail to understand this point, then they will be facing a big trouble.
And I'm sure they have been told this, because that old version
Yes, very
of the
open.
Taliban compared to the new version, Imran Saab, is very different. They speak English, they can tolerate women, and even tough questions were being asked, still he tolerated. Otherwise, I haven't seen any Taliban that if you put pressure on him, he's going to listen to you. So things will change, and they'll have to change. And perhaps they have learned that it won't work like the way they initially thought, because the entire world is eyeing on Afghanistan. And everybody is saying that they'll have to prove, they'll have to legitimize their government through their effort, and it should be visible, whether it's Mr. Blinken. And again, talking about Mr. Blinken, he recently had a very important meeting with the G7 foreign ministers, even the Japanese foreign minister, the Turkish, the Qatari foreign minister, and even the European Union foreign ministers were there as well, including the Secretary General of the NATO. And they have all decided now that yes, humanitarian issue is there, will remain there, and we'll look after that. Financial assistance is going to be there, but diplomacy is going to be the name of the game. Now, sir, from a gun to a diplomat, you know, the kind of mindset, one of the senior diplomats is with us also, that really requires a lot of, I'm not saying only the education matters, but it requires a lot of wisdom, political know-how, the global approach, the current developing situations, and so on and so forth. Perhaps the old Taliban, they were totally introvert, and they would not even think about what the Americans could have done to them, and eventually they suffered. But sir, at the end of the day, the new ones, they're modern. Just imagine, we used to never see a single picture. Now they're making selfies, they're making videos, and as mentioned by Jal Saab, playing in the various parks or something offset, using the gym, and I mean, it felt very interesting as well at one way. So do you think they are totally geared up for that?
They have definitely changed, but I will also say that diplomacy is a code word for if the US needs them, everything will be acceptable to the US, whatever they do. Of course, there is a big difference between the Taliban of today and what they were back 20, 25 years ago. And there's a human face to it now. They're tweeting, they're texting, they're giving out speeches. Basically, today I saw a speech of the leader of the Taliban telling all the elite soldiers, Badri, I believe the name is of the elite soldiers.
313 Badri
That's
brigade.
right. So he was telling them to respect the people and do not offend people. You got to show respect to the people. So that right there is a big change. But I do want to. There's a lot of noise right now in the Western media, of course, in the Indian media, and amid all that noise, some of the very basic and essential facts get ignored, and I'm just going to talk about that. One is, what I don't understand is, why is the burden of proof on the Taliban to prove themselves? What's your history, the United States? What's your record? What was the record of Amrullah Saleh and Ashraf Ghani and Hamid Karzai even? They had killed innocent people too. You're talking about human rights and female rights? Do you know the number of women that gets raped in the United States? I live in the US, I know. I once installed
They don't talk about it. No? I once installed the headlines. They don't always talk about it on social media.
Yeah.
I think we are still at an embryonic stage as far as social media is concerned.
Yeah.
Whether you talk about Twitter or Facebook or TikTok or anything, these stupid things would carry on till we learn. Or the government has to intervene and take a very serious step that stop this nonsense.
It will take its time. But what needs to be clarified in all this noise is some of the very basic things. One is, who really cares about Afghanistan? The reason, and I'm going to answer that question, Taliban. The reason I say that is, what's like the basic need for a country to say that we are free when it is not occupied by some foreign forces?
Correct.
Who are the people who say that our land has to be free of occupation forces? Taliban. Who are the people who say the US forces must stay? Amrullah Saleh, Ashraf Ghani, the puppets they had put in the place. India, of course. So if you just look, I mean, those are very strong signs for people who cannot understand what's going on and they don't want to read all the articles by New York Times and Washington Post and other publications. Ask yourself these basic questions. Who are the people who are saying, leave our land? And that is actually a basic requirement for a land to say that we are free, when there are no foreign forces occupying your land. If foreign forces are on your soil occupying you, but you wear a tie and suit and you say, oh, I'm a democratically elected leader, you're not a free country. You're just joking. You're just lying to yourself and to your people. No wonder you fled before the Americans left. Ashraf Ghani was out of town before the Americans.
Trusted, sir, when they started off these Doha talks. Even prior to that,
he was trying to delay those.
Islamic Emirates concept where that emerged, it wasn't Ashraf Ghani, sir. It was the former President Hamid Karzai who hated it, I remember, and blamed Pakistan for everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
The point is that they are not ready. They were not ready, but now reality has changed so on ground.
They wanted to delay it. They tried very hard, and then it didn't delay it, and finally happened. Biden came in, and he continued with the deal that Trump had, by the way, made. That was the one good thing that Trump did. One foreign policy. The credit still goes to Donald Trump for this. This was signed by him, by the way. But thanks to Biden, he continued with it. It wasn't an easy decision. So we'll see what happens in Afghanistan. But one thing can be definitely said about that country: today it is free. It's free of occupation forces. Afghanistan, there will be a lot of problems right now, and even in the coming days. But for the first time in a long time, they can say that we have a free country now.
And that's very, very important. Now, Ambassador, one important factor, that is about the recognition of the Taliban government, because we have also learned that they'll soon be forming one. Initially, it was Pakistan, UAE, and Saudi Arabia they recognized. They financed also for for a certain time period, and eventually whatever happened, we are aware of the events that took place after 9/11. Now, sir, the major issue is that now we have learned that Turkey is ready. So the case is China, Russia, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Iran, and even Pakistan. And it could be followed by some other countries also from the Latin American side, or perhaps some other. So that is going to be a good big chunk, sir. You think that is going to be a lot more confident government as compared to the previous one, sir, of the Taliban?
Quite obviously. I mean, there are two factors which are very important right now for the Taliban. One, of course, is the economic assistance, because, there are 38 million Afghans, and half of them are without any food, and there are no jobs and so on. So they need economic assistance from there. And while the West talks about the humanitarian, human rights, etc., but there's a humanitarian crisis in the making unless they come up with support on that.
Correct.
So it is one way of a pressure on them to be able to stick to what is being agreed upon about all-inclusive government, etc. So in a way, it's an indirect way. But once, of course, they are showing this, they display that they are, walking their talk, they are walking the talk, then they will certainly, the West will have to come out and support them. Let me just add something. Historically speaking, of course, the Americans never learned from history. And as we saw the exit right now, the Great Britain and then Soviet Union and America. But
attacked Afghanistan or Iraq for that matter.
But coming back from that, now the other thing was that going back to Vietnam, it took them 20 years from 1975 to 1995 to re-establish relations with Vietnam. But it's time that they should be magnanimous. They should be able to show greater kind of understanding what they owe to the people of Afghanistan. Try and help them at this point of time.
One of the pictures of this Coca-Cola brand, sir,
yes,
in Vietnam was very surprising for me. It was way back in 90s, I guess. And I was like, wow, now this is what the real marketing is all about. So since I'm totally running out of time, last quick comment on the same point, sir. Recognition of Afghanistan, if it is supported by these few countries I named, sir, the Central Asian republics, as well as Russia, China, Pakistan, Iran, and Turkey for that matter, including Qatar, sir.
My analysis is that within a week or 10 days, Taliban will come up with a broad-based government, which is likely to be acceptable to the majority of Afghans, not everybody. It cannot be all-inclusive, but it will be inclusive. And based on that, the countries which you are naming, I think this group will be the first one to recognize them. Of course, US and the West will hold on for some time. But as we have all agreed that they will not like to give this field, to Russia and China alone. So they would also come back in a way. And they've already shown those signs that we will have to, connect with the Afghan people, and we will have to help them and all those things. So if Afghans, they play their cards well, which is quite likely, they go for an inclusive government. They do everything, whatever they are saying. They are likely to, get the help of the world at large. But of course, initially, it will be by this group, which we have talked about, and then it will gain more weight and more mass. But ultimately, I see the things going in good direction, and this entire region prospering within 6 to 7 years of time.
All right. Quick 30-second comment.
So last time the UAE, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan had recognized Taliban, then 9/11 happened. This time around, the US may take its time, but eventually they know that they will have to go for it.
If they have to put their step there once again, diplomatically, they'll have to. Anyway, Ambassador, thank you so much, sir.
I'll just quickly add, I mean, there shouldn't be any urgency.
Urgency.
for doing
Wait
that,
and see.
Because we
Wait and
have,
see.
we are, are able to discuss with the Taliban right now in Kabul and they are in Doha. There are talks taking place. So give them time to settle down,
Exactly.
have a form of government.
It can't be
and then it should be a, consensus
That
approach
is
towards
the
the
way
recognition.
forward. Anyway, thank you so much, sir. Imran sir, it was a pleasure. Jalsa, thank you so much for your presence as well, sir. And that's all we have for this sub. But before we leave, a quick comment. I hope and pray that the way Afghanistan became the land for the Cold War between the Soviet Union and America, it should not become now another similar place for the Chinese and the Americans. Because at the end of the day, the real purpose of the Americans wasn't just to eliminate Al-Qaeda, it was here to keep an eye on our nuclear arsenal and on the expansion of China and encirclement of Russia. That is it. And this is still on, by the way. Anyway, thank you so much for watching the show. I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, Khuda Hafiz.